My life with Frank in New York City had the rhythm of a well-known dance. 7 years of marriage, stable jobs, a shared mortgage on a decent condo on the Upper East Side. Everything seemed to be in order. Until one Tuesday afternoon, while reviewing our online accounts to pay the bills, I saw something odd. The mortgage statement, which was always charged to our joint account, appeared with a slightly different reference code. A few digits were changed. My accounting sense inherited from my mother went on high alert. "Frank, honey," I asked him that night as we were having an omelette for dinner, "did you change anything with the automatic mortgage payment? The code on this month's statement looks new to me." He didn't look up from his plate. "No, of course not. It's probably some nonsense from the bank, a system update. You know how they are." His tone was casual, too casual. "I should call to confirm," I insisted. "Don't bother, Carly, everything's fine." He finally looked at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Trust me." That's where the crack began. The small fissure through which doubt crept in. I decided not to call the bank in front of him. The next day, during my lunch hour, I went to a branch. Not ours, a different one. I showed them the digital statement. "Good afternoon. I wanted to confirm the ownership details linked to this mortgage loan number," I said, trying to seem merely meticulous. The employee typed, looked at the screen, then looked at me. "Ma'am, this loan is linked to the property at 124 Park Avenue, apartment 3B, but the registered owners of the loan are you, Carly Miller, and Connie Harrison." The air left my lungs. Connie Harrison, my mother-in-law. "And Frank Rogers, my husband." She shook her head slowly. "He's not listed. Only you and Mrs. Harrison as the primary debtors." "That's impossible," I whispered. "We bought it together." "The property registry data is what it is, ma'am. The loan is in both of your names." Her look was one of pity. "Would you like to speak with a manager?" "No, no, thank you." I walked out onto Park Avenue. The hustle and bustle of New York suddenly faded. Only one thought throbbed in my mind. Frank. Why I didn't go back to the office. I took the subway to the city register's office downtown. My heart hammered against my ribs. I filled out a request for a simple title report. I paid the fee. I waited sitting on a hard plastic chair, watching couples pass by, talking about their home, their future. "Carly Miller," an official called out. I went up. He handed me a document. My eyes flew directly to the ownership section. Current registration property, 124 Park Avenue, 3B, New York. Owner Connie Harrison with her identification. Date of registration 5 months ago. Method of acquisition. Deed of gift. Gifter Frank Rogers. The paper trembled in my hands. The room spun. A gift. He had gifted it to his mother 5 months ago, and I, like an idiot, had been paying the mortgage all these months. My share and his when he was short on cash for the month. The rage was a hot whip, followed by an icy cold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go straight to his work and confront him in front of everyone. But then, in the midst of the chaos, the voice of my mother rose, a judge, echoed in my head like an ancient piece of advice. "Never act in anger, Carly. Rage clouds strategy. First observe, then act." I took a deep breath, folded the paper carefully, and put it in my purse. I called my mother from the plaza. The wind was blowing hard. "Mum." "Honey, what's wrong?" Her voice was like an anchor. She immediately detected the suppressed tremor in my voice. "I need your advice. Not as my mother, as a judge." There was a pause. "Talk to me." "Frank, the condo has been in Connie's name for months, and I'm still paying for it." A heavy silence on the other end of the line. Then her tone became precise. "Professional." the tone she uses in her rulings. Do you have physical proof? I just got the title report. A gift deed from 5 months ago. Good. Keep it in a safe place where he can't access it. Don't say anything, absolutely nothing. Do you understand me? Nothing. I mean nothing, Carly. Act normal. This is crucial. He thinks you don't know. That's your advantage. Now observe. Take note of everything, every conversation about money, every transfer. Then we'll talk. And what do? I can't look at him. You have to for now. Trust me. This is serious. It's a fraudulent conveyance of marital assets, possibly criminal. But we need more. Don't raise the alarm. I hung up. Her words, fraudulent conveyance, chilled my blood. This wasn't an oversight. It was a plan. That night, Frank came home late. Work meeting, he said, hanging up his jacket. Oh, I said from the couch, pretending to read. Everything okay? Yeah, the usual stress. He came over, tried to kiss me on the forehead. I restrained myself from pulling away. And you? How was your day? Wonderful. I discovered my husband has stolen my home. Boring. Paperwork meetings, the usual. He nodded distractedly and went to the kitchen for a beer. I watched him, his back, his familiar gestures. The man I shared my life, my bed, my dreams with, and who had betrayed me in the coldest, most calculated way. It wasn't just the money. It was the home. Our home. He had given it away. For what? To make sure that if something went wrong, I'd be left with nothing. While he watched TV, I faked a headache and locked myself in the study. I took out a new, simple notebook. On the first page, I wrote, Log April 20th, 2026, and noted in clear, cold handwriting the first entry one. Today, confirmed property registered in the name of Connie Harrison. Gift from Frank. Registration date 5 months ago. Proof title report in blue folder safe deposit box. 2. This evening, Frank lied about his meeting. Came home smelling of tobacco. Claims to have quit a year ago. The next day, when Frank said over breakfast, Hey, honey, I'm a little tight this month with a car payment. Could you handle the whole mortgage? I'll transfer it to you next month. I smiled. Of course, don't worry about it, I said with a sweetness that tasted like bile. And in my notebook, I wrote the 3rd of April, 21st. Asks me to pay the full mortgage. Lies about the reason. As I left the house, the New York sun hit my face. The city continued its rhythm, indifferent, but I was no longer the same. The crack in my calm had opened wide, and through it only a cold, hard light entered, the light of truth and of the revenge that I was now silently beginning to plan. My mother was right. This was my advantage, and I wasn't going to waste it. The smell of freshly ground coffee and warm croissants filled the patio of a cafe in the West Village. It was our spot, Lucy's and mine, a refuge on a cobblestone street, where for years we had shared secrets, laughter, and sometimes tears. Today it was the latter. Lucy was already there. Her sunglasses pushed up on her brown hair. She saw my face, and her smile vanished. Oh my God. Carly, what happened? I slumped into the chair. The paper napkin disintegrated between my fingers. I took a deep breath and told her. Everything. The title report, the gift deed, the mortgage payments, my mother's voice on the phone. Each word came out cold and flat, as if I were reporting on someone else's case. When I finished, Lucy was pale. I can't believe it. Frank. But he's always been such a charmer. A little traditional, maybe. But to scam his own wife, she lowered her voice. Are you sure there isn't an explanation? A mistake at the registry, something like that. I took the copy of the title report from my bag and slid it across the marble table. Lucy read it. Her eyes widened. Connie Harrison, deed of gift. She looked at me. Son of a bitch. Literally. That's disgusting. Yes, I said, taking the paper back. It is. So what are you going to do? You have to kick him out of the house right now, change the locks, tell everyone. It was the logical reaction, the visceral one, the one I'd had at first. I can't. Not yet. Why not? For God's sake. Because my mother, the judge, told me not to. He thinks I don't know. That's my only advantage right now. If I tell him, he'll get defensive, hide things, find a cunning lawyer. Right now, I lowered my voice even more. I'm at war. And in a war, you don't warn the enemy that you've broken their codes. Lucy looked at me with a mix of admiration and concern. Damn, Carly, you sound just like your mother. Maybe today I need to be a little like her. The waiter brought our coffees. The ritual of pouring the milk, stirring the sugar, gave me a moment of false normalcy, a respite. You have to tell me everything, Lucy insisted, taking my hand. From the beginning. Didn't you see any signs? I leaned back in my chair, letting the mid-morning sun hit my face. The signs. I knew them, or rather I had ignored them. About a year ago, I began. Frank started talking about protecting our assets. He said a coworker had lost almost everything in his divorce, that we had to be smart. I laughed. I told him we shouldn't be thinking about divorces when we were fine. Lucy nodded grimly. The classic, projecting his intentions. Then about 7 months ago, he insisted we review our wills. We went to a lawyer, all very cordial. We left everything to each other, the usual. But he had all the papers already prepared. I just signed. It was then. No, just after. A few weeks later, he started with the story of refinancing the mortgage to save money. He said his bank was offering a better rate, but that he needed the property title to be cleaner for the paperwork, that I should trust him, that they were just technicalities. I handle the day-to-day bills, but he's always handled the big transactions. He's better at it, or so I thought. God, Carly. And you signed something. I must have. Some paper that looked like just another bank form. I didn't review it. I trusted him. The word burned my tongue. Trust. How stupid. You're not stupid. He's your husband. You're supposed to trust him, Lucy said firmly. He's the stupid one and the scumbag. The point is, for months, everything continued as normal. The mortgage kept coming out of our joint account until they changed the reference code. That's what jarred me. And your mother-in-law, Connie? Hasn't she said anything? Nothing. To me, she's still the same. Affectionate, a little pushy about grandkids, but normal. Either she's a brilliant actress, or Frank hasn't told her the whole truth. An even more bitter thought surfaced. Or maybe she does know. Maybe they both know, and they're both laughing at me. Lucy squeezed my hand. Don't think that yet. Focus on the facts. And what does your mother say you should do? Gather evidence. Document everything as if it were a case. That's why I need your help. Whatever it is, I need normalcy. If Frank finds out we've talked about this, he'll get suspicious. So when the three of us see each other, like at dinner with the Russos on Saturday, everything has to be as usual. You and I accomplices, but talking about work, that new series, fashion, whatever. No pitying looks, no coldness towards him. Lucy made a face. Quite a challenge, but I'll do it for you. Thanks. You're my only support system outside of my mother. Everyone else is a couple's friend or his friend. I took a sip of coffee. It was cold, like everything now. And how are you going to gather evidence? I took the small notebook from my bag. This. Dates, conversations, amounts. And I need physical proof. Copies of bank statements from the last few years, proofs of the mortgage transfers from my account. Everything. He keeps that in the study, right? In that blue home folder. Yes, but he has it in his locked drawer. He always carries the key on his keychain. Lucy smiled a cunning smile. Remember in college when we needed that civil law exam that the professor kept under lock and key? A hint of a smile appeared on my lips. The key to the photocopier that was identical. Exactly. Cheap locks often use common patterns. What if tomorrow, while he's in the shower, you try all the keys you have around the house? The one for the storage unit, the old suitcase, you might get lucky. It was an idea, a movie-like idea, but in my situation, normal had ceased to exist. I'll try. And then what does your mother do with all that information? I don't know yet. She says we first need a complete profile, then she'll move her pieces. She has contacts at the registry with lawyers. She doesn't want me to face him alone without an army of evidence behind me. We paid the bill. As we got up, Lucy hugged me tightly. This is going to be horrible, I know. But you're not alone. Call me any time, even at 3 a.m. if you need to scream. Thanks, Lucy. Carly, take him for every last cent. We went out onto the street, each going our separate ways. I walked aimlessly, letting the New York crowd carry me along. I passed by Washington Square Park, full of tourists. Their laughter sounded worlds away. My world had shrunk to a condo on Park Avenue, a notebook and a betrayal. That evening at home, I acted. I put on music as always. I prepared dinner as always. When Frank arrived, I smiled at him as always. Hey, honey, how was your day? Good, I had coffee with Lucy, you know, he asked, giving me a fleeting kiss on the cheek. That's nice. And what do you two talk about so much? A casual, dangerous question. Oh, the usual. Work, how expensive everything is. She wants to dye her hair platinum blonde. I told her it's a terrible idea. A lie, but a believable, inconsequential lie. He laughed. A dry sound. You're right, it would be a disaster. He took off his jacket. Hey, about this month's mortgage. Were you able to handle it? There it was again, the wait. Yes, I made the transfer today. No problem. My voice sounded calm, natural. Inside, I was screaming. You're a lifesaver. Next week I'll deposit it, I promise. It's just a spike in expenses. Don't worry, I said, turning to the stove so he wouldn't see my expression. Do you mind taking out the trash? Sure. As he walked away, I opened my notebook hidden in a kitchen drawer and wrote quickly, April the 22nd. Asks about Lucy, seems skeptical about our coffee, pushes about the mortgage, lied about the reason. Spike in expenses. Transfer made from my personal checking account. Receipt saved. The next day, I put Lucy's plan into action. Frank, as he did every morning, got in the shower. The sound of running water was my signal. I ran to the entryway to his hanging jacket. I took his keychain. My heart was beating so hard I feared he could hear it. I tried the small silver key to our storage unit. No. The old key to the travel suitcase. No. The key to his uncle's cabin upstate. No. I was about to give up when I tried a small golden key he used for an old chest he had as a teenager. I inserted it into the lock of his desk drawer. It turned. With a soft click, the drawer opened. Holding my breath, I opened it. There it was, the blue home folder. Mortgage, taxes, insurance. With trembling hands, I took it out. I didn't have time to review everything. I took out my phone and started photographing. The pages of the original mortgage contract bank statements from the last 3 years, a copy of the deed of sale. I snapped and snapped the phone's shutter on silent, praying the sound of the water would cover it. Then I saw something, a separate folded paper. I opened it. It was a printed draft of an email addressed to his mother. Mum, as soon as you get confirmation from the notary that the gift is irrevocable, let me know. Don't talk about this with Carly, of course. It's just a family protection formality. She wouldn't understand. Love, Frank. The date was from 5 months and 10 days ago, just after our visit to the lawyer for the wills. I felt a pit in my stomach, a cold that wasn't from the morning. It wasn't just some obscure banking formality. He had planned it. He had lied in writing. He had assumed I wouldn't understand. The contempt in that phrase was more painful than the betrayal itself. I heard the shower water turn off. I carefully closed the drawer, put the folder back exactly as it was, and slipped out of the study, the phone burning in my hand. In my purse, the notebook was waiting. Later, I would write 5. April 23rd. Accessed documents, photos of contract statements, deed, key proof, email draft to Connie. She wouldn't understand. Date 5 months ago. Save copies to a USB drive. That night, as Frank snored beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The crack was no longer just a crack. It was an abyss. And I was on the edge, collecting every stone he had thrown, preparing to build my own bridge to get out of there, or maybe to throw them back at him. My mother's brownstone in Brooklyn Heights always smelled of lemon polish old books and strong coffee. A scent of order, of certainty, the complete opposite of the chaos inside me. I sat in her living room facing her. Rose wasn't a large woman, but her presence filled the room. She wore reading glasses on the tip of her nose and observed me over them with that look that had made more than one reluctant witness confess. "Well, show me what you've brought," she said without preamble. I placed the evidence on the coffee table. One by one, the printed photos of the bank statements, the copy of the title report, and finally the crown jewel, the photo of the email draft from Frank to Connie. She wouldn't understand. Rose put on her glasses, studied each sheet in silence, and made no comment. Her face was a mask of professionalism. Only the slight clenching of her jaw betrayed an inner tension. When she finished, she pushed the papers aside and took off her glasses. "It's worse than I thought," she said, and her voice was no longer my mother's, but that of Judge Rose Miller. "This isn't just a diversion of marital assets, Carly. This is a scam, an emotional and economic scam, perfectly orchestrated." The word scam echoed in the room, hard and cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean that Frank, probably advised by someone, has used your trust and your signature to strip you of a fundamental right over the marital home. The gift to his mother, while you continue to pay the mortgage, is a fraudulent mechanism to undermine the community property. It's very serious." She got up and went to her library, searching through thick legal codes. She pulled one out. "Section 276 of New York's debtor and creditor law," she said, turning pages with confidence, "and the entire body of case law on equitable distribution. Your signature on those bank documents obtained under deceit could be voided. And this gift," she pointed to the email with a firm finger, "proves actual intent to defraud. It proves he knew he was hiding it from you. That sentence, 'she wouldn't understand,' is pure gold for a judge." A mix of relief and terror washed over me. Relief because there was a path. Terror because that path involved legally destroying my marriage. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice sounding small. Rose sat down again, pulling her chair closer. Her expression softened slightly. "First, honey, is that you're okay. How are you?" The question disarmed me. I broke down and cried. All the weight of the last few days, The acting, the contained rage, came out in silent sobs. She said nothing, just put an arm around my shoulders and let me cry. When I calmed down, she offered me a linen handkerchief. "Sorry," I mumbled. "Don't apologize for feeling. Now dry those tears, because from now on you need a cool head. You're about to enter a legal battle, and in a battle you either fight or you get crushed. There's no middle ground." I nodded, wiping my face. "Tell me what to do." "We're going to follow a three-phase plan. Phase 1, consolidate the evidence. All this," she pointed to the papers, "is very good, but we need more. We need a trail of his intent. Communications, recorded conversations. Yes, in New York it's legal to record a conversation you're a part of without informing the other party. We need witnesses to his statements about protecting assets. Everything. Witnesses. But our friends are mutual, they won't take my side. Not all of them. Think. Someone he might have let his guard down with, maybe bragging about how smart he's been. A coworker, a drinking buddy, a relative who isn't entirely on his side." My mind worked at lightning speed. His cousin Javier. They don't get along very well. Javier has always thought Frank is, well, a snob. And once at a barbecue, Frank started talking about how vulnerable men are in divorces. Javier cut him off, saying that if he was scared, it was because he was up to something. Rose smiled a humorless smile. "Perfect. Javier, write it down. We'll try to contact him discreetly later. But first, the recordings. Your phone has a recording function. The next time he talks about the mortgage money, the house, you activate it. It's going to feel disgusting. I know, but it's necessary. Phase 2, psychological pressure." Here she leaned forward and her eyes shining with strategic intelligence. "Frank thinks he's in control. He thinks you know nothing and that his mother is the legal owner. But what if that property suddenly causes her a problem, a discomfort?" "What do you mean?" "I have a friend, Louis. He works at a major real estate management firm, Mediterranean Property Management. They do work for banks, title verifications. He's trustworthy. I could have someone from his company call Connie. A routine call about her property in New York to update tax data or for a supposed issue with the registry. Something that forces her to confront the fact that she has a house in her name that she knows nothing about or doesn't want to know about. And most importantly, that forces her to call her son and ask for an explanation. That will create friction between them. It will make them nervous, and when people are nervous, they make mistakes." The idea was brilliant and terrifying. "But what if Connie calls me alarmed?" "It's a risk. But if she calls you, you act just as surprised. A house in your name, Connie." "How strange. Frank hasn't said anything to me. You should talk to him. That way you pit them against each other and you maintain your role as the innocent party. It's crucial." And phase 3. Phase 3 is legal action, but only when we have an irrefutable dossier. Then and only then will we present it to a specialist lawyer. I already have someone in mind, and will act. We can sue to nullify the gift on grounds of fraud, demand the restitution of everything you've paid plus damages, depending on what the investigation reveals, maybe even a criminal complaint for fraudulent conveyance. But one step at a time. I took a deep breath. The plan was clear, cold, efficient. Like her. And what if? What if I just talk to him? Tell him I know everything, that he should cancel the gift, that we can work it out between us. Rose took my hands. Her hands were strong, steady. "Carly, listen to me. A man who plans this for months, who lies to your face every day, who says she wouldn't understand, that man is not going to fix anything amicably. If you show him your cards now, the only thing he'll do is find a way to hide the game better. Move assets. Find a smarter lawyer, pressure you emotionally until you give in. You don't have to follow my plan, but trust me." There was a glint of pain in her eyes. "I'm your mother, and seeing how he's hurt you breaks my heart. But I'm also a judge, and I've seen too many cases like yours. Women who trusted, who spoke too soon, and who lost everything. I will not let you be one of them." Her words gave me strength, a cold, determined strength. I nodded. "Okay, let's do it." "Good. Now first thing, give me a copy of everything. I'll keep a set of evidence in my safe deposit box. You keep another in a different place. Nothing in the cloud that he could figure out. A hidden USB drive. Or at my place." "Okay. And now," she said, getting up, "we're going to have that coffee, and you're going to tell me in detail every conversation you've had with him about money in the last year. From the mortgage to who paid for groceries. Everything." We spent the next 2 hours going over my married life as if it were a court file. Every comment, every complaint about expenses, every argument about savings. Rose took notes on a legal pad, digging deeper. It was exhausting and cathartic. Seeing my life dissected like that made it manageable, a problem with a possible solution. When I left that night, Rose hugged me at the door. "You're stronger than you think, Carly. Remember, you're not just fighting for a house. You're fighting for your dignity. And no one gets to gift that to their mother." I walked to my car with those words echoing in my head. Not for a house. For my dignity. That night, Frank was in a good mood. He had closed a deal at work. "This is great for us, you know. A nice extra chunk of change. We could take a weekend trip to Paris. What do you think?" I smiled. "Sounds wonderful, honey." Inside, I was thinking. And how much of that extra chunk will go into the joint account, and how much will be diverted? "Hey," he said suddenly as we were watching the news. "My mum called me today. Says she got a weird email from the bank asking for some documentation or other. I told her it's just spam phishing, that she should ignore it. You know how these things scare older people." My heart skipped a beat. It was my mother's first move. So fast. "Poor thing," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Yeah, you have to be careful. Tell her not to open anything weird." "Yeah, I already told her." Phase 2. Psychological pressure initiated. I thought. And with the excuse of going to the bathroom, I turned on my phone's voice recorder. When I came back, I sat next to him on the couch. "Hey, about that trip to Paris, it would be great. We really need a break. With the stress from work and this mortgage that eats up so much, it gets overwhelming sometimes." I said, leaving the bait. "Come on, don't get overwhelmed. You'll see with this extra cash and what we save in a few years, we'll have it paid off and it'll be all ours." Ours? The word sounded like a mockery. The recorder was still running, capturing every syllable of his lie. "You're right," I murmured, leaning on his shoulder, a gesture that now felt theatrical and slimy. All ours. The next day, during my lunch hour, I called from a park. "Mum." He said something about an email from the bank. Yes, Lewis has already moved his people. It was a generic test email to see his reaction. The phone call will be next week, more direct. "And you?" "I recorded a conversation last night. He lied about the mortgage, saying it's all ours." "Perfect. Save it. Keep it up, Carly. Are you ready for what's next?" "What's next?" "Your mother-in-law is going to get that call, and her world and your husband's are going to be shaken. The calm is over. From here on, things could get ugly. Make sure you have a go bag packed with essentials in case you need to leave the house quickly, and change the passwords to your email and online banking if you haven't already." I hung up. I looked around me, children playing, people strolling. A normality that was no longer mine. My battle was silent, made of recordings, anonymous phone calls, and fake smiles. But the battle had finally begun. And I, the naive Carly, now had a general, my mother the judge, and a plan. In Charleston, in her bright condo in the French Quarter overlooking the Ashley River, Connie Harrison was starting her morning as always. At 10 a.m., after her coffee and toast, she would sit on her balcony with her newspaper. The river flowed slowly below her. Calm was her kingdom. Until the phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. With some suspicion, she answered. Hello. Good morning. Am I speaking with Mrs. Connie Harrison? A male voice, young, polite, but impersonal. Yes, this is she. Who's calling? This is Daniel Roberts from Mediterranean Property Management. I'm calling in relation to your property located at 124 Park Avenue Apartment 3B in New York City. Connie blinked. Excuse me. What property? The residence in New York, Mrs. Harrison. You are listed as the owner in the public record. We are conducting a data update for the tax assessor's office and a verification of the fiscal documentation associated with the property. We need to confirm a few details with you. An uncomfortable silence filled the line. Connie could hear the typing of a keyboard on the other end. There must be a mistake, she said with a firmness that was beginning to crack. I don't own any property in New York. Let me verify. Social Security number ending in... He read off the last 4 digits of her SSN. Connie Harrison. Registration in your name since November 18th of last year via a deed of gift. The phrase deed of gift rang like a bell in Connie's ear. A distant memory, a conversation with Frank, something about paperwork, a formality. It's just a formality, Mom, to facilitate some of my business. He had sent her some documents. She, trusting her son, her pride, the successful New York lawyer, had signed, where he indicated without reading too much. Had that been it? No, it couldn't be. Mr. Roberts, there's an error, she insisted. But her voice was no longer so sure. My son has an apartment in New York, but it's his and his wife's. Carly's. The property registry lists you as the sole owner, ma'am. The gift was executed by your son, Frank Rogers. Could you confirm if you have the deed of gift on hand? We would need a copy for our file. Sole owner. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I don't have that deed. My son handles all of that. I understand. It's important that you locate it. Additionally, we need to clarify the situation with the mortgage lien. The property has an active mortgage with Atlantic Bank. Are you current on the payments, or is your son handling them? Mortgage. The word fell like a stone. A mortgage. Her voice was barely a thread. Yes, ma'am. For an initial amount of $350,000, with about $250,000 still outstanding. As you are listed as the sole owner, you are legally responsible for the debt to the banking institution. If payments are not made, foreclosure actions would fall on you and the property, of course. Connie felt her stomach clench. But my son pays the mortgage, he and his wife. They live there. That may be, ma'am, but for legal purposes, the debt is in your name. I recommend you speak with your son to clarify the situation and regularize the documentation. You should also have a copy of the deed of gift. It's your right as the owner. The man's tone remained impeccably professional, which made every word sound more terrifying. Furthermore, as the owner of an asset of that value, you must declare it on your income taxes to the IRS. Have you done so? I don't know. My accountant. I would have to check. There could be tax repercussions. I will send you an email with our contact information and a summary of our conversation. Please get your documentation in order. Have a good day. The call ended. Connie sat there, the cordless phone in her hand, staring blankly at the river. A torrent of thoughts crashed in her head. Sole owner mortgage, legally responsible IRS foreclosure, and then the other phrase, the one that started it all, deed of gift. It hadn't been a mere formality. He had given her the house, their house, the house where he lived with Carly, and there was a mortgage in her name. Was she in debt for $250,000 without knowing it? A cold sweat ran down her back. Frank. She had to talk to Frank. She dialed his cell number with trembling fingers. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Mum? What's up?" Frank's voice sounded busy. The hum of an office was in the background. "Frank, a man from a real estate management company just called me." Her voice trembled. "Another one. I told you to ignore those emails. They're scams." It wasn't an email, it was a call. And he knew my name, my SSN, the apartment's address. He says the New York condo is in my name, Frank. In my name. And that there's a mortgage in my name. Can you explain to me what the hell is going on? The silence on the other end was total. Then Frank coughed. "Mom, calm down. It must be a mistake, a computer glitch. Don't tell me to calm down. The man told me I'm the sole owner because of a gift. The papers I signed. Was that it? You gifted me Carly's house." Her tone was now one of growing disbelief and fury. "Mum, listen. It was a strategy to protect the family assets. Carly, she's not reliable. I thought it was for the best. But it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't change anything. You don't have to pay anything. I handle everything." "A strategy to protect the assets from Carly?" Connie was almost shouting. "But it's her house, it's her home, and now it turns out I'm the owner and I owe a fortune to the bank." "Frank, how could you do this to me without telling me? I explained it to you. You explained nothing. You told me to sign some papers to help you with a formality. Not that I was becoming the owner of her apartment, and certainly not that I was taking on a debt. My God, what if the IRS finds out?" The fiscal panic was visceral in her. "No one is going to find out, Mum. It's just a piece of paper. The house is ours, the family's. This way it's safe." "Safe from what?" "From Carly. She's his wife. She's been by his side for 7 years. She's a good girl." Even through the shock, Connie felt a flash of indignation on Carly's behalf. What had she done to deserve this? Then the next thought arrived icy cold. Does she know? There was another longer pause. "No. And she can't find out. It would be a disaster. She wouldn't understand." The phrase sounded vaguely familiar, but she was too upset to place it. "Of course she wouldn't understand, Frank. It's insane. You have to reverse this. You have to fix this right now. I want that house out of my name now." "Mum, it's not that simple. These processes are slow and expensive. Let me handle it." "No, I'm not going to let you handle it. You've already lied to me once. I want you to come here to Charleston and explain everything with the paperwork. Or I'll go to New York and we'll talk to Carly." "No." Frank's voice was a whip, then lower, softer, the tone he used to calm her since he was a child. "Mum, please trust me. Don't do anything. Don't talk to anyone. I'll fix it, I promise. I have to go now. I have a meeting." The call cut off. Connie stared at the phone, her breath ragged. Her blind trust in her son had shattered, revealing fear and anger. He hadn't just used her, he had put her in danger. Debts, the IRS. Her a widow with her pension, her orderly life dragged into a financial and family mess she didn't understand. Her next thought was of Carly, the poor girl living there, paying for who knows what without knowing her roof was no longer hers. A wave of guilt mixed with panic washed over her. Should she call her, tell her Frank would be furious? But didn't she have a right to know? The image of Carly smiling, serving her coffee in her living room made her heart lurch. She picked up the phone, dialed Carly's number. It rang once, twice, and went to voicemail. "Hi, this is Carly. Leave a message." Her daughter-in-law's voice sounded normal, calm. Connie hung up without saying anything. She couldn't leave that in a message. In New York, at my office desk, I looked at my phone screen. Connie, mother-in-law. The missed call. My heart rate sped up. Phase 2 had made impact. I took a deep breath. I couldn't answer. Not yet. I had to let the pressure do its work, let the doubt and fear make Connie corner Frank. I acted as if nothing had happened and continued working, but every minute that passed was an eternity. Half an hour later, my personal phone vibrated again. A text from Frank, brief, urgent. "Honey, have a family thing with my mum. Nothing serious, but I have to leave early. Don't wait for me for dinner. I'll tell you later. Kisses." I smiled to myself. A family thing. Nothing serious. Of course not. She just discovered she was the unwilling owner of a condo and a $250,000 debt. And her son had lied to her. That night, Frank came home after midnight. He smelled of tobacco and exhaustion. I was on the couch, reading with a cup of chamomile tea. "Hey," I said without looking up. "Hey," he mumbled. He collapsed into an armchair, rubbing his face. "Rough day?" "Your mum's thing, what happened?" I asked with a tone of mild concern. "Ah, some stupid thing. Some scammer called her saying she owns a house. You know how they scare old people with anything. I had to calm her down for half an hour on the phone." "Poor thing. We should have her come to New York for a few days to distract her." The proposal was venomous in its innocence. "No, no, not at all. She's fine now, she'll get over it." He stood up. "I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted." "Good night," I said sweetly. He went to the bedroom. I stayed in the living room listening to him move around the room. The anger, the frustration, the tension emanated from him like a thick fog. His little world, carefully built on lies, had just received its first crack. And not from my side, but from his, from the heart of his ally, his unwitting accomplice, his mother. I opened my notebook hidden between the pages of my book and wrote in the lamplight. April 6th, 28. 10:15 a.m. Call from Mediterranean management to Connie. It worked. Reaction, shock, anger. She called me. I didn't answer. Frank left work early. Family thing. Arrived late, nervous, lied about the cause. Scammers. The rift between them is opening. Phase 2 in motion. I closed the notebook. The chamomile tea was cold. Outside New York never slept, and I lying on the couch that was perhaps no longer mine, but which I was still paying for, wasn't sleeping either. The battle had shifted fronts. The enemy was now also fighting at home, and that I knew made him more dangerous and more predictable at the same time. The calm was over. The earthquake was beginning, and I was at the epicenter, waiting for my next move. The tension in the Park Avenue apartment was palpable, like the heavy air before a storm. Frank had been distant, irritable for 2 days. He snapped at nothing. His phone rang constantly, and he would lower his voice, talking to his mother, I presumed. I observed, acting normal, but it was getting harder and harder. My phone's recorder was my shadow, always ready. It was the third day, a Thursday night, when the storm broke. I was washing the dinner dishes. He walked into the kitchen, a frown on his face, holding his phone. Have you spoken to my mother? The question was a dry shot. I placed a plate in the drying rack, slowly drying my hands. No. Why is she still worried about the scammers? Activating the recorder was an almost automatic movement. They're not scammers, Carly, he said, and his tone was different, bitter, defiant. The mask of normalcy was cracking. Oh, they're not. Then what are they? I turned, leaning against the sink. He took a deep breath, as if searching for patience. Look, there's been a misunderstanding with the house, with the condo. A misunderstanding. I tilted my head, feigning innocent confusion. With our house? Yes, with the house. He avoided saying our. Months ago, I refinanced the mortgage to get a better interest rate. The bank required certain conditions regarding the title. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice calm. What conditions? That the property be in the name of a single owner to expedite things. It was a paperwork mess. I thought the easiest thing was to put it in my mother's name, temporarily, just as a figurehead. She doesn't pay anything, she doesn't have to do anything. We are still the owners inside. It's just a piece of paper. The words tumbled out, a rehearsed justification that was falling apart on contact with the air. A piece of paper, I repeated slowly. So you gifted our home to your mother and you didn't think it was necessary to mention it to me? He paled slightly. It's not a real gift, it's an administrative transfer. And I didn't tell you so as not to worry you. These are technical things. You wouldn't understand this stuff. You wouldn't understand. The same phrase from the email. A cocktail of rage and pain boiled in my stomach. Oh, I wouldn't understand. Right. But what I do understand, Frank, is that ever since then, I've continued to pay the mortgage month after month. Sometimes my share, sometimes yours when you were short. Is that also part of the administrative process, that I pay the mortgage on a house that's no longer mine? He fell silent. The lie was too big, too obvious. I could see his mind desperately searching for an exit. It's our money anyway. It's for our future. Our future. A future where the house belongs to your mother. I took a step forward. I couldn't pretend anymore. Are you telling me, Frank, that you signed papers to give our home to your mother, and on top of that you expect me to keep paying for it, and that all of this is fine because I wouldn't understand? His eyes widened like saucers. How? How do you know about the she wouldn't understand part? The bitter taste of triumph mixed with bile in my throat. I know. I know everything. I know about the gift from 5 months ago. I know the condo is in Connie's name. I know that I, along with her, am a debtor on a loan for $250,000 for a property I don't own. I know everything. The silence that followed was absolute. Only the hum of the refrigerator. His face went from shock to shame to a deep, dark anger. You've been snooping, he said, finally, his voice low and hoarse. Going through my things, spying on me. Spying on you. The laugh that came out of me was sharp, hysterical. You robbed me, Frank. You robbed me of my home, my security, our future. And you want to talk about the ethics of snooping. I didn't rob you of anything. It's my house too, and I can do what I want with it, he shouted, losing his temper. His fist hit the countertop. I was protecting both of us. Protecting us from what? From you deciding to walk out one day and take half of everything, like Pablo's wife did. She left him on the street. This country is a disaster for men in divorces. Everything goes to the woman. I was just making sure, protecting what's mine. There it was. The naked, ugly, selfish truth. It wasn't a family plan. It wasn't a mistake. It was distrust. It was pettiness. It was making sure that if something went wrong, I would leave with empty hands. So that's the future you see for us, I said, and my voice was now as cold as steel. One where I leave you. And so, as a precaution, you strip me of my home. You see me not as your wife, but as your potential enemy. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I screamed for the first time. All the contained rage exploded. You haven't seen me as your partner. You've seen me as a threat, as a stranger to be watched and disarmed. For months you've lied to my face while I religiously paid my share of your inheritance. What else, Frank? What other plans did you have? An offshore account, a life insurance policy in your mother's name, too. He was speechless, panting, looking at me as if he didn't know me. Maybe he didn't. This Carly cold, furious Lucid was not the woman he thought he had by his side. You have to fix it, I said, wiping away a tear of fury I didn't want to shed. You have to reverse that gift. Now. I can't, he mumbled, looking away. It's not that easy. And even if I could, I'm not going to. It's what's best for the family. For what family, yours? Because my family certainly doesn't agree. Your family, T. Your mother, the judge, right? A flash of malicious understanding lit up his face. She's behind this. She's turned you against me. She never accepted me. Don't bring my mother into this. You did this all by yourself, with your greed and your disloyalty. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control. Frank, I'm giving you one last chance. Tomorrow we go to a lawyer. You start the process to nullify that gift, or I will take the measures I have to take. His laugh was a dry, bitter sound. Measures? What are you going to do? Sue me with what you earn. You can't afford a good lawyer. And that house legally belongs to my mother. You have nothing. Each word was a nail in the coffin. We'll see what I have or don't have, I said with a calmness that surprised me. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm not spending another night under this roof with you. I turned and walked towards the bedroom. He didn't try to stop me. 10 minutes later, I came out of the room with a small suitcase. He was still in the kitchen, motionless, looking out the window at the New York darkness. I'm leaving, I said. He didn't turn around. Where? To my mum's. That's none of your business. He finally turned. His expression was a mix of defiance and something like fear. If you leave like this, don't come back. I don't plan to, I replied and opened the door. The click of the doorknob sounded like a gunshot. Your mother has my number. When you want to talk about nullifying the gift, have her call me. I stepped out into the hallway, closed the door, and leaned against the wall, trembling. I didn't cry. The rage held me up like a steel skeleton. I went down the stairs, out onto Park Avenue, and put the suitcase in the trunk of my car. I called my mother. It happened. He knows. I'm coming to your place. Come, was all she said. Connie arrived in New York the next day on the first Acela from the south. She didn't go to our home. She came directly to my office. She called my desk. Her voice was a taut thread. Carly, it's Connie. We need to talk. Now. I met her at a discreet coffee shop near the office. When she arrived, she looked like she had aged 10 years. Worry was etched into every line on her face. I'm so sorry about last night, were her first words, even before she sat down. Frank told me you argued. We didn't argue, Connie. He confessed that he stole my home and used me to pay for it for you. There was no time for niceties. She paled. No, it's not like that, Carly. I swear. I knew nothing about the mortgage. He told me to sign some papers for a formality. To help him. I didn't want your house. But you have it, I said, relentless. In your name. And I'm still paying the mortgage. Do you know what that means, Connie? That if Frank stops paying, the bank can come after you and me? Tears welled in her eyes. He's my son. My only son. I couldn't refuse to help him. Help him do what Connie defraud me, leave me on the street. I lowered my voice. You've always been good to me. That's why this hurts twice as much. You've been an accomplice, whether you meant to be or not. I was not an accomplice to anything. Her voice trembled with indignation. He lied to me too. He used me. And when I found out the truth, I was ashamed. Ashamed of my own son. She took a shaky sip of water. I don't want problems with the IRS or debts, and I certainly don't want to take what's yours. I came to tell you that I will sign whatever is necessary to give you back what is yours. I looked at her. Her anguish seemed genuine. The resentment boiling inside me cooled a little. She was another victim of a different kind, a victim of her son's manipulation. He won't want to cheat, I said. He thinks he's right, that he's protecting the family assets. Nonsense. That's pure selfishness and fear. Connie pursed her lips. I spoke with him this morning. He's clammed up. He says he won't back down, that it's for the best, that you'll eventually give in. She looked at me, and in her eyes there was a glint of old Southern severity. But you're not going to give in, are you? No, I said firmly. I'm not giving in. Good. She nodded as if making a decision. Then you'll have to do what you have to do. I won't stand in your way. I'll sign whatever is necessary. But she hesitated. Please don't hurt him more than necessary. He's my son. He did this to himself, Connie, to you and to me. She nodded sadly. She knew it was true. She paid for her coffee and stood up. He doesn't know I came to see you, and it's better if he doesn't. Take care, Carly. And she left a small, defeated figure disappearing into the New York crowd. That night at my mother's house, I laid out all the evidence on the dining room table, the photos, the recordings, the title report, the email. And now Connie's implicit testimony, an accomplice turned witness. Rose examined everything. It's enough, she said at last. More than enough. You have the documentary proof, the proof of his fraudulent intent, and now even the beneficiary of the gift is willing to testify against him. Tomorrow I'm calling Alan. Alan. Alan Roberts, the best family law attorney in New York and an old friend. I'll send him the dossier. He'll be delighted to take it. And what happens now? I asked, suddenly assaulted by the fear of the unknown. Now, my mother said, putting a hand on my shoulder, the war begins, and we, my dear, have the heavy artillery. I looked out the window. In the safe silence of my mother's home, the storm I had left behind on Park Avenue seemed distant. But it was coming. And this time, I wasn't in its path. I was ready to direct it. The mask of the submissive, trusting wife had fallen, and what was left underneath, though scared, was harder and clearer than it had ever been. The morning after my conversation with Connie, I found myself sitting across from Alan Roberts in his office on a high floor overlooking the city. It wasn't what I expected. Instead of the dark, stately office, I had imagined it was a bright, minimalist space with shelves full of legal codes and a stunning view of Manhattan. Alan was a man of about 55, with precisely cut salt and pepper hair and an impeccable navy suit. He wore no tie. His eyes, a piercing grey, examined me with a professional curiosity that made me feel like an interesting specimen. Rose has told me a lot about you, Carly. He began, his voice deep and calm. And she sent me the preliminary dossier. He pointed to an open folder on his glass desk. I recognized my photos, my transcripts. It's a textbook case. Unfortunately, a book I read far too often. Textbook? I asked, a little surprised. By the book, he clarified, leaning back in his chair. A husband who, fearing a possible future divorce, diverts the main marital asset, the marital home, to a relative, usually the parents. I've seen it with houses, with cars, with shares in companies. It's the classic play of fear and bad faith. His tone was didactic, merciless. What makes your case special is the sum of your husband's blunders. That email is of a stupid arrogance. And to have you continue to pay the mortgage, and that's a level of meanness that would turn even a jaded judge's stomach. His raw words gave me a strange sense of validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't exaggerating. It was exactly as serious as I thought. What can we do? I asked. We can do several things. The civil route is clear, a lawsuit to nullify the gift due to impairment of your spousal rights in the marital property and for actual intent to defraud. That is because he deceived you. With the evidence we have, it's almost a formality. He paused. Then there's the criminal route, the crime of fraudulent conveyance under New York's debtor and creditor law. It consists of diverting, hiding, or encumbering assets to harm a creditor. In this case, you would be the creditor of your share of the community property. It's more complex to prove, but with that email and your mother-in-law's testimony, it's possible. But I'll be honest with you. The criminal route is scary, but it's long and draining. The civil route is faster, and the practical result is the same. The condo returns to the marital estate. And what about all the money I've paid on the mortgage by myself all these months? We claim it as reimbursement, with interest. Everything, every cent. In addition, we can claim compensation for emotional distress, stress, disloyalty, abuse of trust. He picked up a pen. The goal, Carly, is not just to recover what's yours. It's to make Frank Rogers understand that actions have consequences and that the price of his protection is going to be very, very high. I felt a shiver. It wasn't revenge I wanted. Or was it? At that moment, with the rage still fresh, maybe a little. And my mother-in-law. She wants to cooperate. That's unusual and invaluable. Her testimony will be key. If she's willing to testify that she signed without knowing the real scope, that she was induced into error by her son, the nullification is almost guaranteed. I need to speak with her, take a formal statement. Do you think she'll agree? Yes. She's as scared and angry as I am. More so because she feels used. Perfect. He jotted something down. Now the immediate strategy. I'm going to draft a formal demand letter. I'll send it to your husband. It's the mandatory preliminary step before suing. I'll demand that within 15 days, he begin the process of reversing the gift back into the marital estate, that he provide us with the original documentation made of the entire process, and that he deposit into an account we designate the full amount you've paid solo on the mortgage, plus a provision for legal costs. It's formally backing him into a corner. He'll most likely do nothing. Then after 15 days, we file the lawsuit. And if he does something, if he asks to talk to me, Alan looked at me intently. You do not talk to him, not without me or your mother present. Any communication must be in writing. If he insists, you tell him, talk to my lawyer, and that's it. Do you understand? Any emotional concession now will be used against you. He is no longer your husband, Carly. He is the opposing party in a litigation. Treat him as such. His words were a hammer blow, but a necessary one. I nodded. Okay, good. We'll sign the retainer agreement today, and tomorrow the letter goes out to his address, to his work for greater effect. A fleeting, almost cruel smile appeared on his lips. For men like him, what hurts most is being humiliated on their own turf. At his law firm, receiving a summons from a colleague, that stings. As I signed the endless papers, I felt a mix of vertigo and determination. I had crossed the Rubicon. There was no turning back. Frank received the letter the next morning, as Alan predicted at his downtown office. I found out from a text message from Connie, who he had called furious barely half an hour later. He called hysterical, said I betrayed him, that I spoke to your lawyer, that you're going to ruin him. I hung up. I'm not going through this. I'm calling your lawyer this afternoon as you asked. Take care. I didn't reply. I followed Alan's advice. Silence. That same afternoon, while Alan was taking a sworn statement by phone from Connie, who confirmed in writing everything she had told me, Frank made his move. Instead of calling Alan, as would have been logical, he came to my workplace. My assistant called me into the inner office. Her voice worried. Carly, Frank is here in reception. He seems agitated. What should I do? My heart sped up. Don't let him in. Tell him to go down to the street. I'll be down in 5 minutes. I didn't want a scene in my office. I went down with my phone in hand, my finger on the record button. He was on the sidewalk by the door without a coat, his tie undone. He looked like he hadn't slept. What do you want, Frank? I asked, keeping my distance. What do I want? His voice was harsh, loaded with sarcasm. I want you to withdraw that damn letter, to stop turning my mother against me. You're a manipulator. Your mother has made her own decisions just as you made yours. I kept my voice low, clear. Talk to my lawyer, Frank. I have nothing to say to you. Your lawyer. That vulture your mother hired. This is between you and me. He took a step towards me. I stepped back. Are you really going to take me to court over a stupid thing? Are you going to destroy our life over this? The recorder was still running. You destroyed it when you stole my home. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces. I didn't steal it. I just put it in a safe place, he shouted. And a couple of passers-by turned to look. It's our house, it always will be. But if you continue down this path, you'll be left with nothing. Carly, I swear. My lawyer. Your lawyer. I cut him off. The same one who advised you on this brilliant move, I'd love to meet him. He'll be a great witness at trial. He was dumbfounded. My coldness, my lack of fear, seemed to disconcert him more than my anger. Don't do this, he said, and suddenly his tone was pleading false. For what we had. We can fix this. Come home. I'll undo everything. We can go back to how we were. It was too late. Those words a month ago would have changed everything. Now they just sounded like another trap. We can't go back to how we were, Frank, because how we were was a lie. You lying and me paying. Talk to Mr. Roberts. You have 15 days. I turned to go inside. If you walk away now, I'm divorcing you and you won't see a cent from me, he roared at my back. I stopped. I turned slowly, and for the first time I smiled at him. A sad, real smile. That Frank is the least of my problems. I entered the building, leaving him standing on the sidewalk. My legs were shaking, but inside a strange peace was settling. The worst had already happened. He couldn't hurt me any more than he already had. I had finally seen him reduced to a scared man shouting empty threats. His power over me had vanished. When I got up to my office, I called Alan. He came. He threatened me. It's recorded. Excellent. The demand letter is having its effect. Now patience. The clock is ticking in your favor. The less he does, the better for us. The 15 days passed slowly. There was no response from Frank, not a call to Alan, just silence. On the 16th day, Alan filed the lawsuit in the New York County Supreme Court. The news came to me in a brief email. Complaint filed. We now await service on the defendant. Continue with your life. A.R. I tried to follow his advice. I returned to the routine of work, to quiet dinners with my mother, to coffees with Lucy, who kept me informed of the rumors circulating among our mutual friends. Frank was telling his version that I was influenced by my mother, that I wanted to take everything, that I had turned his elderly mother against him. Some believed him. Others, the smarter ones, kept quiet. The world was dividing as expected. A week after the lawsuit was filed, I got the call. It was a court-appointed mediator. The procedure required a mandatory mediation session before going to trial, a last attempt at settlement. "Do I have to go?" I asked Alan with apprehension. "Yes, it's mandatory, but don't worry. I'll go with you and there will be no mediating. It's a formality. He won't accept our terms and we won't accept anything less. It serves to show the judge that we've attempted an agreement. Go prepared to see him and remember silence calm, and let me do the talking." The session was the following Tuesday, a small impersonal room in the courthouse. Frank arrived with his lawyer, an older man with a tired air. We didn't look at each other. Alan and I on one side of the table, them on the other. The mediator, a woman in her 40s with a monotonous voice, explained the rules. "Mr. Rogers," Alan began with exquisite politeness. "Our position is clear as stated in the demand letter. Nullification of the gift, reimbursement of funds and damages. It's a generous offer considering we could also have initiated criminal proceedings." Frank's lawyer cleared his throat. "My client is willing to regularize the mortgage situation, assuming full payment from now on. He is also willing to grant the plaintiff a lifetime right of use of the residence, but the property must remain in the family. It is unacceptable for a family asset to pass into the hands of a stranger in the event of a divorce." A stranger. The word echoed in the room like a blow. Alan didn't even blink. "Mrs. Miller is not a stranger. She is the rightful owner of half the marital asset. What she is asking for is the restoration of the status quo prior to your client's fraudulent action. Nothing more and nothing less. The right of use offer is an insult. She is not a widowed grandmother. She is a 35-year-old woman who has been the target of an attempt to dispossess her." Frank couldn't contain himself. "No one has dispossessed her of anything." He looked directly at Alan, ignoring me. "It's my house." "Which you bought with marital funds, Mr. Rogers," Alan retorted with an icy smile. "As evidenced by the bank statements showing the plaintiff's salary deposits. Half of the initial savings were hers, and she has paid all the mortgage payments to date, often in their entirety. You, in fact, owe her money." Frank turned red. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. "My client offers a dignified solution," the older lawyer insisted. "A right of use is more than she would get in a standard divorce if the house is, as they allege, marital property." "It's not as they allege. It is," Alan said firmly. "And in a standard divorce, the property is sold and the money is divided, or one party buys out the other. What you are offering is to turn my client into a rent-free tenant of her mother-in-law after she's already paid for half the house. Unacceptable." The mediator intervened. "Do you see any point of agreement? Any concession?" Alan shook his head. "None. Our offer is what it is, and it expires today." Frank finally fixed his eyes on me. There was hatred there. A deep hatred born of shame and of being cornered. "Are you okay with this Carly tearing everything apart?" Alan opened his mouth to respond, but I gave him a slight signal. I looked directly at Frank. You tore it all apart, Frank. I'm just trying to pick up what's left of me. Then he shot up his chair, screeching, This isn't going to end like this. You're going to lose, and you're going to regret it. His lawyer tried to calm him, muttering something about making a bad impression on the judge. The mediation session is closed without agreement, the mediator declared with a sigh of annoyance. We left the room. Alan guided me down the hallway away from them. That went perfectly, he murmured. He lost his temper. He made threats in front of the mediator. It all goes in the record. This will be a slam dunk at trial. And now? I asked as we stepped out into the grey light of the Manhattan afternoon. Now. Alan said, opening the door of the cab he had called, The negotiation ends and the real war begins. The next step is the hearing. Prepare yourself. You're going to have to testify, and you're going to have to watch us dismantle your husband piece by piece in front of a judge. I got into the cab. The city passed by quickly through the window. I didn't feel fear, just an immense exhaustion and a steely determination. The cards were on the table, and for the first time, mine were the best. All that was left was to play the game to the end. The days following the failed mediation were a whirlwind of obsessive preparation. Alan had me in his office after my workday, going over every detail, every date, every number. It was like studying for the most important exam of my life, where a single hesitation could cost me everything. Don't just say he asked you to pay the mortgage, Alan instructed me, pacing his office. Say, on the evening of April 22nd during dinner, he specifically asked me to transfer the full monthly payment, citing a spike in expenses with his car. Days earlier, the title report had already confirmed the property was no longer ours. Connect the facts, be precise. The judge doesn't want emotions. He wants a chain of facts, cause and effect. At night at my mother's, I reviewed the papers until the letters blurred before my eyes. Rose was my sparring partner, playing the role of the opposing counsel. And why did you continue to pay if you were suspicious, she would ask with the severity of a judge. Because I wasn't suspicious. I trusted my husband until the evidence opened my eyes. And why didn't you confront your husband immediately? On legal advice, so as not to alert him and to be able to gather more evidence of his fraudulent intent. It was a mantra, a script I had to make my own. In the midst of this pressure, the news I both feared and expected arrived. Connie called me crying. Carly, he came. Frank, here to Charleston. He's a mess. He says I'm going to ruin his life, that if I testify against you, his career will be over. That no one will trust a lawyer convicted of fraudulent conveyance. Her voice was breaking. He begged me on his knees. Carly, he's my son. I shut myself off from the pain. What did you tell him, Connie? I told him. I told him the truth is the truth, that he lied to me. But what if he's right? What if this destroys him? He destroyed himself, I said with more harshness than I felt. You're not doing anything wrong. You're telling the truth. The truth shouldn't ruin anyone unless their actions deserve it. There was a silence. Connie, if you back out now, he wins, and I lose my home, my money, and my dignity. And you'll be left with a $250,000 debt on your back, and a son who knows he can manipulate you. The sigh on the other end of the phone was deep, resigned. I have the notarized statement that Mr. Roberts sent me. I'm not backing out. But please let this be over soon. I can't take it anymore. I know. Thank you, Connie. After hanging up, I knew the last family front was secure. But Frank Cornered became more unpredictable. The next day at work, I received a certified letter from his lawyer. It wasn't a response to our lawsuit. It was a countersuit for abandonment of the marital home. It's a classic distraction tactic, Alan scoffed when I showed it to him over the phone. He alleges that you abandoned the marital residence without justification, causing him emotional distress and violating your marital duties. It has no basis, but it serves to muddy the process, and perhaps to try to negotiate a withdrawal of our lawsuit in exchange for withdrawing this one. I wouldn't budge, but the countersuit came with an appendix that chilled my blood. A detailed invoice of my expenses for the last 6 months, supposedly obtained from our joint account. It highlighted my purchases at clothing stores, at a spa, at expensive restaurants with Lucy. While the defendant was striving to maintain the family unit, the document stated the plaintiff was dedicating common funds to a superfluous lifestyle and leisure, which demonstrates her detachment and her intention to deteriorate the bond. They were my own expenses, taken out of context, twisted. The spa was a birthday gift from Lucy. The restaurants were work dinners that I paid for up front and was later reimbursed for. The clothes. Well, it was my money, but to see it like that, exposed, criminalized, made me feel violated. How did he get this? I asked Alan, furious. From your joint bank account. He still has access. It's legal, though, of considerable moral baseness. Don't worry. In court, we'll show the context of each expense, and above all, we'll contrast it with his great expense of stripping his wife of her home. It won't fly. However, the lowest blow was yet to come. 2 days before the hearing, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Carmen Frank's younger sister, whom I had always loved like a little sister. Her voice was cold, distant. Carly, I need to see you, to talk as family. We met at a neutral bar. Carmen arrived with her arms crossed. There were no kisses. Frank is devastated, she said without preamble. We all are. This is getting out of hand. He started it, Carmen. Don't start with that. A house is just a house, Carly. It's about family. You're going to destroy your family over a piece of paper. Her eyes shone with tears of indignation. My mother can't sleep. Frank isn't eating, and you're there with your mother, the judge, and your expensive lawyer ready to take your own husband to court. What have you become? Every word was a knife. I've become someone who defends herself, Carmen. Someone your brother treated like an enemy. And you, instead of holding him accountable, you come to scold me. He made a mistake. A mistake, but he's your husband. Forgive him. Work it out between you. Withdraw the lawsuit. She leaned forward. If you don't, Carly, I swear the entire family will turn against you. At the trial, we'll all testify. Dad, Mum, the uncles. We'll say you were always a gold digger, that you never supported him, that this disaster is your fault. Your word against all of ours. It was an ultimatum and a threat of collective perjury. The family pressure, the strength of the clan used as a weapon. I felt a void in my chest. I had loved them. I had considered them my family. And Connie? I asked, barely a whisper. Mum is confused and old. In the end, she'll do what the family says. She always has. Carmen stood up. You have until tomorrow to decide. Either your family or you're the enemy. And if you're the enemy, we will crush you. I sat there trembling long after she had gone. I called my mother, crying. She listened in silence. It's the move of desperation, she said finally. They can't win with the law, so they're trying to win with fear and social pressure. Are you going to give in? I don't know. Yes, you do. I know it hurts. Of course it hurts. Betrayals hurt. But now you know who they really are. It's a high price, but it's the truth. Call Alan. Alan listened to my story calmly. Coordinated family testimonies. It's a risk, but a predictable one. Don't worry. I have a few aces up my sleeve. What? The cousin Javier. The one who doesn't get along with Frank. I contacted him weeks ago, as I mentioned. He's willing to testify about the barbecue and about other things, about how Frank bragged about having tied his wife down with some papers. And most importantly, he has screenshots of a family WhatsApp group where Frank and his father were discussing the benefits of the gift to leave Carly on the street if she gets difficult. Javier apparently disagreed and was kicked out of the group, but not before taking screenshots. An array of hope. And is that admissible as documentary evidence? Yes. It completely dismantles the theory of a mistake or family protection. It shows a conspiracy and pits the family against each other. Your sister-in-law's threat falls apart if one of their own testifies against them. The day before the hearing, Frank attempted one last personal assault. He sent me an email to my personal account with the subject line, "For the love we had. Carly, this has gotten out of hand. I'm sorry, truly. It was a miscalculation, a stupid fear. I don't want to lose you. Withdraw the lawsuit. Come home. The house is yours, ours. I'll sign it over today. We can go to therapy. We can start over. Don't let the lawyers and our mothers destroy what we have. I will always love you, Frank." The words pierced me. For a moment, the temptation to believe, to return to the comfort of the known, was overwhelming. I cried for an hour. Then I printed the email, took it to Alan, and wrote my response, brief and dry, copying him. "Frank, all communication should be directed to my attorney, Alan Roberts. Carly." It was the last door I closed. The day of the hearing dawned cold and grey. The Supreme Court building was crowded. Alan and I arrived early, me in an impeccable dark pantsuit with a knot in my stomach the size of a tennis ball. Connie was already there, sitting alone on a hallway bench, pale as wax. We didn't look at each other. Frank arrived with his father, Mr. Rogers, a stern, tall man who shot me a look of ice, and with his lawyer. Carmen wasn't there. I assumed she was waiting outside as a witness. I didn't see Javier either. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. We entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I had imagined. The judge's bench was elevated. 2 tables faced each other for the parties. We sat. The judge, a middle-aged man with a tired expression, entered, and we all rose. The hearing began. Frank's lawyer started. He explained their theory. The gift was a mere financial formality, beneficial to the family, tacitly consented to by me by continuing to pay the mortgage. That my supposed ignorance was not credible. He talked about my abandonment of the home and my uncontrolled spending. He presented the invoices. It was disgusting to hear my life exposed as a catalogue of frivolities. Then it was Alan's turn. He stood up calmly. "Your Honour, with the court's permission, the reality is much simpler and much more sordid." And he began to lay out our case, chronological, precise, impeccable. The title report, the statements showing the change in the mortgage code after the gift, the full transfers leaving my account. And then he pulled out the first ace, the email draft. She wouldn't understand. He projected it onto a screen. The phrase hung in the room. I saw Frank shrink in his seat. They called Connie to testify. She walked to the stand with trembling steps. She swore to tell the truth. Frank's lawyer gently tried to get her to say she signed, understanding it was a beneficial formality for her son. Connie, her voice broken but clear, said, "I signed where my son told me to. He said it was to help him with the bank. He didn't tell me he was gifting me the house, and he certainly didn't tell me Carly would continue to pay the mortgage. If I had known, I would never have signed it. I feel used." "And isn't it true that later, upon learning the details, you supported your son to protect the family assets?" the lawyer insisted. Connie looked at her son. There were tears in her eyes. At first I wanted to believe him. But then I saw the papers, and I knew he had lied, to me and to his wife. I cannot support a lie. It was a devastating moment, the mother testifying against the son. The judge took notes, impassive. Then they called me. I went to the stand. The judge looked at me. I declared the truth, omitting nothing. I took a deep breath. I looked at Alan. He nodded, and I told my story. The story of the woman who trusts, who pays, who discovers. I talked about the numbers, the dates. When Frank's lawyer asked me about my expenses, I was able to calmly explain the context of each one. The spa was a gift. The dinner at Per Se was with a potential client. I was reimbursed for the amount. Here is the receipt. Alan handed it over. The frivolity strategy was deflating. And then came Alan's masterstroke. He asked the judge to admit new documentary evidence, the screenshots of the family WhatsApp group. Frank's lawyer jumped up, protesting, "Objection untimely. They weren't submitted in time." Your Honour. They were obtained yesterday and are essential to debunk the theory of a mistake and to demonstrate the existence of a concerted plan to dispossess my client. The judge, with a look of annoyance, admitted them. Proceed. Alan projected the screenshots. There were the names Frank, his father and uncle, discussing. Frank's text. With this, if she ever thinks about leaving, she leaves with nothing. The house stays in the family. Mr. Rogers' reply. Good thinking, son. You have to keep women on a short leash. And then Javier's intervention. This is a scumbag move. Carly is family. And Frank's angry response. Stay out of it, Javier. This isn't your business. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Frank had his head down. Mr. Rogers stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his face livid. The mask of the united family had shattered before the judge. Alan said nothing more. He didn't need to. After that, Javier testified. Brief, concise, he confirmed the authenticity of the chats. He said he found it disloyal from the very beginning. Frank's lawyer tried to attack him, calling him resentful. Javier shrugged. Maybe. But what was said there was said. At the end of the hearing, the judge announced he would issue his ruling within 15 days. We left the courtroom. In the hallway, the tension exploded. Mr. Rogers planted himself in front of me, ignoring Alan. Are you satisfied you've destroyed my son? You've pitted his mother against him. You've bought Javier. You're a viper. Before I could respond, Alan stepped between us. Mr. Rogers, address me. And be careful with the insults, as they are also a crime. Frank was a few steps behind, looking at me. There was no longer hatred in his eyes, just an absolute emptiness, a complete defeat. Connie had vanished without looking at anyone. On the street, Alan gave me a pat on the shoulder. It went perfectly. The chats. That was the final nail. The judge can't ignore it. It's irrefutable proof of intent to defraud. Now we wait. And the countersuit for abandonment? I asked, having forgotten. They didn't even mention it in their closing arguments. It sank on its own. We got in the car. My mother was waiting at home with dinner prepared. As New York passed us by, I felt no joy or relief, just an infinite exhaustion, as if I had carried a huge weight for miles. And now, having set it down, my body didn't know what to do without it. The legal battle was perhaps won, but the war, the one for my life, my marriage, my idea of family, that one I had lost a long time ago. And the scars I knew would never completely disappear. 15 days after the hearing, the notification arrived at my mother's house. A thick brown envelope with the court's seal. My hands didn't tremble when I opened it. I had been through so much fear that now all that was left was an expectant emptiness. Rose stood beside me in silence. It was the judgment. 30 pages of technical jargon, but the conclusion at the end was clear. We rule that we must uphold the complaint filed by Ms. Carly Miller against Mr. Frank Rogers. The gift of the residence located at 124 Park Avenue 3B is declared null and void, having been effected with fraudulent intent and in violation of the plaintiff's rights as a spouse in a community property regime. The property shall be reintegrated into the marital estate of the spouses. The defendant is ordered to reimburse the plaintiff for the entirety of the amounts paid by her for the mortgage loan since the date of the gift, plus legal interest, amounting to the sum of $28,750. The defendant is ordered to pay compensation for emotional distress in the amount of $15,000 for abuse of trust and unjustly suffered affliction. The countersuit for abandonment of the home filed by Mr. Frank Rogers is dismissed. The costs of the proceedings are imposed on the defendant. I read it aloud. Each sentence was a stone sealing the end. The house was ours again, both of ours just in time for the divorce. He owed me money, and he had to pay for all the legal fees. We had won. Completely. Rose hugged me tightly. "You did it, honey." "We did it, Mom." And for the first time in months, I cried. Not from pain, from relief. The news spread like wildfire. Alan called half an hour later, professional satisfaction in his voice. "An exemplary ruling. Unappealable in practice. If he files an appeal, he'll lose and have to pay more costs. I'll send a copy to his attorney with an offer if he waives the right to appeal and expedites the sale of the condo. We can be flexible on the payment deadlines. If not, we'll garnish his wages." "Do what you think is necessary, Alan. I trust you." He has 1 week to respond. Then we begin enforcement and in parallel the divorce. With this ruling, it will be quick. Dissolution of assets. Sale of the condo distribution. In 6 months, this could all be over. 6 months. Half a year and I would be free. The idea was both terrifying and electrifying. Frank's reaction came on the 3rd day, not through his lawyer, but in person. The doorbell at my mother's rang at 9 p.m. It was him, alone, pale with sunken eyes. He looked like he had aged 10 years. Rose wanted to intervene, but I gave her a signal. I stepped out into the hallway, leaving the door ajar. "What do you want, Frank?" "I received your lawyer's offer," he said in a hoarse voice without looking me in the eye. "I'm not going to appeal. I don't have the money for another battle, and my father wants nothing to do with it. He told me I'm on my own." The family pride had been broken. Mr. Rogers, seeing his name stained in a court ruling, had turned his back on him. "I'm sorry about your father," I said, and part of me meant it. "No, you're not." He finally looked at me. There was resignation, no more hatred. "You won. You did it. Are you happy?" "No, Frank. I'm not happy. I'm at peace. It's different." He nodded as if he understood. "I'll sell the condo, or I'll buy your share. Whatever you prefer. I want this to be over." "Me too. Talk to Alan. He'll handle the sale. It will be cleaner." "Okay." And he hesitated. "My mother, Connie, she wants to see you. To say goodbye, I guess. Before she goes back to Charleston for good." "I'll call her." "Carly, did you really never suspect? You never thought I could?" "No," I interrupted him. "Never. That was the problem." A painful grimace twisted his mouth. He nodded again, turned and walked away down the stairs, his back defeated. I never saw him again. I met with Connie at the same cafe where we had our last difficult conversation. She arrived with a small, wrapped gift. "For your new home when you have it," she said with a sad smile. It was a ceramic vase from Charleston, cobalt blue and white. It's beautiful. Thank you, Connie. You don't have to. Yes, I do. It's an apology from a mother who didn't know how to raise a decent son. Her eyes filled with tears. I told him I don't want to see him again until he's truly sorry, and that might take years. I've lost him, but I lost you too, and I'm sorrier about that than I can say. I took her hand. You were a victim too, and you were brave. Thank you. I wasn't brave. I was selfish. I was afraid of the IRS. She let out a bitter laugh. In the end, all decisions are made out of fear or love, aren't they? Frank did it out of fear. I spoke out of fear. And you fought for. Why, Carly? I thought for a moment. For self-respect, I suppose. That's the best kind of love, she whispered. She stood up. I wish you a very happy life, honey, truly. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, picked up her bag, and walked away with that southern dignity that not even pain could bend. The process was quick, as Alan had said. Frank put up no obstacles. He waived his right to appeal. The condo went on the market. Within a month, we had a serious offer. We accepted it. With the money after paying off the remaining mortgage, a significant amount was left over, half for each of us. But from his share, what he owed me from the judgment was deducted. In the end, the figure that was deposited into my account left me breathless. Enough for a good starter apartment in a more modest neighborhood. But mine. All mine. The divorce was a formality. No children with the assets already divided. It was a cold and efficient mutual agreement. We signed the papers at the courthouse in separate rooms. We didn't have to see each other. 6 months after the verdict, I was in my new apartment, not on the Upper East Side, but in a quieter part of Brooklyn. Smaller with less light, but with a view of a peaceful courtyard. I was furnishing it little by little. Connie's vase was in the center of the living room table. One Sunday afternoon, my mother came to visit. She brought pastries and a thermos of coffee. We sat on the small balcony, the warm October sun on our faces. "Are you okay?" she asked, pouring the coffee. "Yes," I said. And it was true. Sometimes at night, I still wake up thinking I hear his breathing, or I catch myself thinking about asking his opinion on a paint color for the wall, but they're just ghosts. They go away quickly. The price of truth is often loneliness at first, Rose said with her judge and mother wisdom. But it's a clean loneliness. No lies. Yes. I looked at my notebook, which I had brought to the new apartment. It was on the last page. I didn't write in it anymore. The last entry was from weeks ago. Judgment final, money deposited, divorce final, new key. "And now what, Carly?" my mother asked. "Now," I said, taking a sip of hot coffee. "I live on the street." The bells of a distant church rang out, marking the hour. They weren't the bells of my old neighborhood. They were new ones like me. The past was a healing wound, not a weight dragging me down. Frank was a bitter memory, not a present pain. The Park Avenue condo was a place on a property map, not a home. I was scared, of course. Scared of loneliness, of the uncertain economy of starting over in my mid-30s. But it was my fear, not one imposed by someone who claimed to love me. And that difference changed everything. Rose smiled at me, raising her cup. "Well, let's toast to that. To living." "To living," I repeated. And we clinked our cups with a soft click of porcelain. The sun was setting over the rooftops of Brooklyn, painting the sky orange and pink. Below, the life of New York City continued unstoppable. I was no longer the deceived woman paying the mortgage on a house that wasn't hers. I was Carly Miller, owner of her life, her apartment, her zero debt. Scarred, yes, but standing. And with the only judge that mattered, her own conscience, absolutely at peace. I had lost a marriage, a political family, a version of my future. But I had won myself. And on that quiet October Sunday, with the taste of coffee and pastry in my mouth, and her mother's hand on hers, she knew with a deep and quiet certainty that it had been the best trade of her life. The battle was over, and peace at last was hers.